We're going to start with our water-based markers, a pencil, a paintbrush, paper towel, small cup of water, and a piece of white paper. Let's start by drawing the shape of our sunflower. I'm going to make my circle. First I'm going to warm up my hand and make the circle in the air, and then when I have a good shape, I'm going to lower my pencil down to the paper and keep doing that circle really lightly. Now I'm going to pick a good line and make that circle just a little bit darker. Next, I'm going to start adding petals. I'm going to go all the way around. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Once I complete this first round of petals, I'm going to add in a stem. Sunflowers have a pretty thick stem, so you want to leave a good space for it. Now that I've got my stem, I'm going to add a second row of petals that you can just see behind the first one. So it's not a full petal, it's just kind of the top. Let's speed it up again. Okay, now I'm going to add some little circles inside the center of the flower where the seeds would be. But I'm not going to fill the whole thing with circles. I'm just going to do a few. All right, we've got our drawing done. Now we can get out our first color. Start with a yellow marker, and we're going to go just inside those pencil lines on the first row of petals. You want a nice thick line. You want to go all around that inside of that pencil line with the marker. And with these thick markers, if you're using the thick round markers, you'll see the side of the marker is nice and wide. You can use the side of that felt tip to make your line thicker. I'm going to speed it up again, going over all of those lines with the yellow marker. And I'm putting a little more yellow at the bottom where it meets the center of the flower too, so that we'll get a nice separation between the center and the petals. Once I've finished the yellow, I'm going to go over it with orange. Just going to put orange right on the inside of the yellow line. So not on top of the yellow, but just inside of that yellow line on each petal. And once I have that done, I'm going to get my paintbrush and my water cup and my paper towel, and I'm going to start painting those petals in. I'm just going to start at the bottom closest to the center and go around the edges and then fill in the center, and the yellow and the orange are going to kind of mix together. It's not going to mix together right away. What happens is we're going to get this wet, and some of the paint or the marker ink is going to mix right away, and then as it sits over time, more of the ink is going to move through the damp paper and it's going to blend together better. So if it doesn't blend right away, don't keep painting over it because you will make a hole in your paper. Just paint it once and let it sit. Once you've got your first row of petals painted in, we're going to move to the second row of petals, and we're going to make them a little bit darker to help the first row of petals stand out. So for the second row, you're going to want to get your orange marker out. Oh, and remember to keep your paintbrush rested on the paper towel or your table. Don't let it sit in the water cup while you go on to this next step. Get your orange marker, and you're going to do the same thing you did the first time. You're just going to outline where those second petals would be with the orange marker. Right, I'm going to speed it up again. I'm going to keep going around the whole flower and get all of the orange petals drawn in. Make sure you go down between the yellow petals if you have room. And once we finish all these orange petals, we're going to get the paintbrush back out and we're going to start painting in those second row of orange petals. But we're going to stop every couple petals, 2 or 3, and we're going to add some red in to make them just a little bit brighter. Okay, so I'm going to set my paintbrush down. I'm going to get my red marker. I'm just going to put a little bit of red on that in-between spot between the 2 front petals. And your marker, because it's wet on the paper, your marker might not work that well, but that's okay because we don't need a lot of color. We just want a little bit. And again, just like on the front petals, the color is not going to blend right away. It's just you're going to get it wet, and then over time it's going to blend more, and that red's going to soak into the orange a little bit and move the color out. So you can go ahead and do that working a few petals at a time so that the paper stays pretty damp when you're using that red marker to add the depth. All right, I resumed really fast forward on that one. Now I'm going to do my stem. I'm going to start with the yellow, and then I'm going to put green on either side so that my stem will be nice and light in the middle and dark on the edges. That gives it a little bit of three-dimensional quality. And you can see that after I let this sit for a while, the red and orange of my back petals blended together really nicely. It's starting to look like a flower. So painting in that stem after I put the yellow and green on it. And next, I'm going to start working on the center of the flower. I'm going to use a brown crayon, and I'm going to color in the center of the flower, but I'm not going to color in those little circles I drew. I'm going to color around the circles. So I'm going to speed it up here so you don't have to wait while I color the whole thing, but you want to do a little bit of careful coloring, paying attention to the direction of your coloring so that it doesn't look like a big scribble. I'm going to go over it twice because I want it to be pretty dark. I don't want it to be too light, but I also want a little bit of paper left because we're going to put some marker on top. Finish that up. I'm going to get my purple marker because I want the inside to be nice and dark. And I'm going to use my purple to color in those blank circles that I made for the seeds earlier. Once I've got those seeds colored in, I'm going to get my brown marker and I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of brown on the left side of the flower. And it's going to make the part of the flower look a little darker on that side. And now I'm going to get my paintbrush with water and I'm going to start painting over the crayon with the brown and purple marker. And I'm not concerned about the purple getting smeared. I'm blending it into the brown, and it doesn't matter. I don't have to paint in those little circles individually. Now I'm going to take some red on the other side to make the other side a little bit brighter. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my paintbrush. I'm going to paint in that red side. And I'm going to blend it over into the brown and purple with my brush. And you'll notice that the crayon, because it's waxy, it's resisting, it's repelling some of that water and the paint that we've made. So when you're done, if there's some water sitting on top or some paint that didn't quite soak into the paper, you can blot it gently with your paper towel. And that's it. Now you have a nice sunflower, and if you want, you can even cut it out and you could put it on a different background, or you could cut it out and put it on your wall like it's growing right in your room. Just make sure it's totally dry before you cut it out. You can also go over the petals with a little bit of orange or yellow if you want to make them stand out more. Go ahead and do what you want to finish up your sunflower.